Greetings, this is Skylar Saunders seeing what's current. Now, today is a very solemn day, but it's a very victorious day as well. 80 years ago today, in France, on the beaches of Normandy, Omaha, Utah, and Sword beaches were stormed by the Allied forces, and the largest invasion ever in human history, and it stands to this day, against the German forces, against the Axis powers. And America prevailed, but it had an enormous cost. Tens of thousands of people, men, died on those beaches. But I want to highlight some of the forgotten heroes that fought a war that may not have been just rifles and hand-to-hand combat or anything like that. It was about the only solely black unit known as the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, which also featured such gallant men as Waverly, Woodson, and others, and they demonstrated great honor and courage in the face of something so ugly and evil as the German advancement. So they had these balloons. They would take these balloons. This wasn't a revolutionary or news tactic, but this was employed during the World War II. They would fill them with hydrogen and have little bombs, little clusters attached to cables, and these metal cables would be very pertinent, very important, because they would be able to clip or even dismantle and destroy German aircraft. So that was the main thrust behind using those balloons. That was the powerful ideal behind using the balloons. But I just want to say it just heartens me in a sense, because it's like, this is how stupid racism is. This is how ridiculous and horrific and ugly it is, and how it's used in comedy. Because if it weren't so horrific and ugly and disgusting and violent and forceful, it would be hilarious. It would be a joke. That's why so many comedians use racism or racism as a platform to use for jokes. Because it's so ridiculous. It's so disgusting. It's so barbaric and low grade. And what Ayn Rand said was the lowest form of collectivism. It's a barnyard form of collectivism. So that's exactly what it is. And it's a sad shame that all these men, these brave men that consisted of a unit all black, for whatever reason, white men and black men and yellow men and red men and brown men can't get together. They can't fight together. They can't eat together. They can't sleep, in the same sleeping quarters. Can't do that. Till Truman, said, maybe this makes sense. Let's desegregate the military, and so on and so forth. From then on, look what's happened. You have the Joint Chiefs of Staff member. Head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a black man. I think his name is Q.R. Brown, H.Q.R. Brown, something like that. Air Force General, 4-star general. The first 4-star general for the Marines, first black 4-star general, was either last year or the year before. It's a long way. It's a long way. They're still pushing for a lot of the World War II vets. Some of them to be recognized for their efforts fighting. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. So it's just something very interesting to consider the facts of the reality of there were segregated units. Like we often just take it for granted that, oh yeah, we're all together, white, black, brown, red, yellow, white. No, there were segregated units. There were people that were put in different locations, often given lesser rations, lesser access to medical facilities, lesser care, lesser, everything. Everything was on a lower scale for people that were of color, men of color especially. And these forgotten heroes of D-Day, it just makes you very, it makes me very, angry at sometimes. I get rationally angry when I consider the fact that so many men have fought and died, and some of them that survived still didn't get the treatment they should have gotten. The men that died, it's already a sad reminder, but the men who lived and had to still live in America and to be treated like a second-class citizen. I mean, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I can't fight that war. That's the white man's war. That's bullshit. Black people, the black man and the black woman have fought in every American war since the revolution, since the beginning of this country. Every single one. So that they're fighting for, not for the white man, quote unquote. They're fighting for themselves. They're selfish. They're fighting for their own families. They're fighting for their own values. That's what they're fighting for. And that was they fought for. All the way up to now. To what we're doing now. I myself am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. What did I sign up for? A friend of the family asked me, why? Why are you trying to be Marine? Money and benefits. I told you this isn't like, I didn't know I was going to get bipolar disorder. I didn't know anything like that. I just knew that I was going to get a better, position than I had in Delaware, being hitched to this, this Green Gun Club. So I just want to represent for the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. Say that they have, demonstrated the highest levels of honor and through all adversity. That's the greatest thing. It's not like today. I had little bits of, oh, he's a nigger and whatever. That's cute. That's nothing. These men had to actually face daily, scuffles and fights and, go on your own unit, go to your own place, stay in your place, Negro or Nigra or nigger or whatever the case may have been. And that's on the United States side. We're fighting the same war. We're in the same colors. We're in the same uniform. But somehow, the color of our skin has to be different. It has to be just the amount of melanin concentration is a little higher than the next person, so they have to hate them. And their history has to be forgotten for the most part. So that's what happened on D-Day. D-Day was a collective effort of individuals. It was a collective effort, not collectivized, but collective effort. Southside, Tony, okay, I'm not going to repeat that because I'm trying to be a little bit more serious. I'm trying to be a little more grounded this broadcast. We can talk about that, another time period, maybe on their birthday, in the Navy birthday. We can talk about all the bussy, tales about, being in the Navy. But I'm trying to be a little bit more serious now. So I just wanted to say, the men of the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. I mean, and I have to just explain a little bit more. Those balloons, they actually had, the ability to take out aircraft. That was their main thing. They stopped the aircraft in the air from even, coming close and doing damage to the men on the ground. That was their main focus. That was their main idea. Yes, thanks a lot. You almost got it. Just one letter, Rick James, one letter. But I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for being here. So D-Day, very serious, solemn day, very, 80 years, and there's not too many left. Gentlemen who have come and gone, they laid out a blueprint for being, warriors, men of honor, men of courage, men with a backbone and a spine. Okay, Max Vision, you're out of the loop as well, but I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for your viewership. But I'm being a little bit more serious now. I'm trying not to crack jokes or anything. There's no jokes to crack about D-Day really. I don't think there's too many jokes you can say about D-Day. Even though if you were very leaning towards Encyclopedia Dramatica, you can make a joke out of everything. Everything can be a joke. But I'm not doing that here. Rick James said he had a few relatives that participated in D-Day. I did not. I had my grandfather. I think he fought in either World War II or Korea. I can't remember. I think it was World War II though. But yeah. But so D-Day is a marker, and it's a reminder that says that people of color, you're going to be relegated to the dustpan of history most likely. There's going to have to be people that your family members and people that are in Congress and stuff like that. They will have to resurrect your ideas, resurrect your thoughts, resurrect your emotions, your inner workings in your mind. What you had, for breakfast that day, what you had, on your, in your carry-on, what you had as a diary or a journal or something like that. All that had to be accounted for. Because it's largely been erased. It's largely been forgotten. It's largely been, like I said, relegated to the dustbin of history. Nobody cares. But a few people care. I care. There are a few people that I looked up. The World War II Museum in New Orleans, that definitely got a lot of play and it definitely got a lot of attention towards it today, because people are probably trying to figure out what happened. What was the major thing? I didn't know what happened. I just came across. I was like, were there black people in D-Day? And it came up, said 1,200, nearly almost 2,000 black soldiers fought for America on that day. 1,200 to 2,000, somewhere in that range. So this is a very, somber but reflective kind of moment that we're having now. Because we have to consider all the men who had the gumption, who had the backbone, who had the balls, who had the spine, who had the brains to do this, to do this very sincere, very serious task of saving the free world. That's what they did. And then you can argue, we dropped bombs later on. There was the Battle of the Bulge later on. There's everything else that occurred afterwards. But this was a key, super key moment. This was a huge, humongous, gargantuan moment in time, especially during the World War II, because that was the time of the most lives lost in any conflict in any place in the world ever. World War II still stands as that. And I believe over 400,000 people in America perished. 400,000 Americans perished. I could be wrong. Get on your comments, get your comment fingers going, say I was wrong. But so D-Day, they sometimes just say it's Decision Day. I mean, it was drafted by Patton and other military leaders in a pub, no less. another military story about something originating in a pub or a bar. But they took the time. They weighed the options. They correctly saw that Germany's line was could be weakened and completely destroyed afterwards, and then just a little over a year later, it was the Allied victory, VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, and it's because of certain places, certain units like the like the balloon battalion, the Barrage Balloon Battalion, the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. We have to always commemorate them. We have to always remember them. We always have to recognize them. It's a lot to say, so I always try. I want to make sure I get it right. So I have to say the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. It's got the alliteration going a little bit, but I just think it's valid. I think it's poignant and to the point to discuss, to talk about, you know, the different battles, the different, you know, scenes, different things like that. Maybe not go and see, you know, Saving Private Ryan, which is, you know, complete Hollywood. That's super Hollywood, and it's pretty much too naturalistic. It shows, you know, I guess to give you an example, there's a guy that goes on the beach, he picks up his own arm. I mean, it's like, you don't really need to see that. You know, that doesn't need to be seen. I don't think that helps anybody's, you know, understanding of World War II or D-Day or any other of the events that occurred during that time period. So I think that it is crucial for us, especially as Americans, to take this day into our minds and never forget. Always remember what these men were fighting for. They're fighting not for, you know, collectivism, altruism, mysticism. They're fighting for reason, individualism, and capitalism. They may not have said that. They said, yeah, I'm fighting for my girl. I'm fighting for, you know, my piece of land. I'm fighting for my friends. I'm fighting for this guy left and right to me. I'm fighting for God. Some of them might have said even. Some might have said, you know, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I'm not fighting for that. Whatever it was a value. It was a value. No matter what the case may have been, it was still a value to them and for their life. So that's what is so ingrained in a day just like this. That's what's so powerful. Yeah, are you talking about Saving Private Ryan, Rick James? That's what I'm talking about. It's like why would you want them to relive it? That's between them and their psychiatrist. If the psychiatrist wants to bring up harmful or hurtful, you know, memories and, you know, injurious thoughts, that's the business of a psychiatrist, not somebody in your family. You wouldn't want to ask, you know. I mean, I didn't really ask. I remember my grandfather told me a story when he was in the army, how he went to go into a hooch and to get some coffee, and when he came out, a guy got his, you know, he was blown up by a grenade. Like, if he didn't go get that coffee, I wouldn't be here. I would be here, but because he was like a step grandfather, but still, I mean, just the idea of that, just the idea of him not being able to live. He wouldn't have been able to tell the story. He wouldn't have been able to serve as my grandfather. He wouldn't have been able to say that if he had just not gotten that cup of coffee. But that's just a personal, you know, story. So it's just a sideline story. I want to focus on this 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. They served with complete honor and distinction, and they should be remembered for that. All right, I don't know what you're talking about, Final Destination. Talking about something different. But no, D-Day is reality. It's always going to be with us. It's just like different days like 9/11, September 11th, 2001. It's days that will live on in December 7th, 1941. Days that will forever be, you know, enshrined in the American psyche. You know, that will forever live on without any other issues against, you know, what we stand for. And what is that? What do we stand for? What is the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion? What did they stand for? Like I said before, they all had their different values, but they stood predominantly for individual freedom. They stood for their own selfish rights to be Americans and to breathe free air and to not take a dictator's or a despot's or authoritarian's words and actions and disgusting and acts as a rule of law, to stand up against that, to fight against that, to say that is that their only way of achieving success in life is to be, honorable and courageous and to not back down against anyone for any reason, to live a life that's full, to live a life that's completely in the service of one's own self, not to be obedient and live on the whips of dictators. That's what it's about. That's what it's all. So that's why it's so important to discover and to discuss D-Day, because of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. They are the immortal souls of freedom. And the last one that died actually was in July of 2021. He was the last one to die. And they're dwindling every day. I think there's thousands of World War II, either vets or people that, aided in the vets. They're dying by the thousands every day. At the highest point there were 16 million GIs. 16 million GIs at the highest point of the World War II effort. Sadly, D-Day, Rick James says, sadly, D-Day will not be remembered as much as 9/11 and the Great Depression. Well, the Great Depression isn't a day, necessarily. It's B-tier event. I can't tell what you're saying there. To play objectivist, wouldn't you say it's better for people who lived a day to forget about it so they don't have to relive their tragedy? Well, I don't play objectivist, first of all. I am an objectivist, and I don't think that has anything to do with objectivism so much as psychiatry. Psychiatry has to do that, if they want to relive, if their psychiatrist wants them to draw out memories and to draw out ideas based on their traumatic disorder, their stress disorder, that could be effective. That could be, they're confronting those memories and trying to correct them. That's what with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. When you have those, stressors and things that cause that in your life, and you're able to confront them, that could be, therapeutic. That could be very helpful to their minds. That's why I say it's all in the hands in the minds of a psychiatrist. It's all in the minds of a psychiatrist. That's how I stand. But the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion should forever be remembered for their efforts. The only unit, the only one, the only black unit ever to serve on Omaha Beach or on the beaches of Normandy. Only black unit. And why is it the only black unit? Because the Army was segregated, like the Navy, like the Marines. The Marines, I know, were segregated because of just prejudice. Just the same thing with Army and Navy. Montfort Point Marines. Montfort Point. They were totally segregated. They had their own officers. They had their own senior enlisted men. They had their own, junior grade officers and junior grade enlisted men. It's so stupid. It's really stupid. It's like really sad and stupid that we even have that as history. But it is history. It's just reality. It's what happened. And what continues to happen, to this day. Racist people are against people because of the color of their skin, not the content of their character or their capacity of their minds. Not that, but just because they have a higher melanin count, or they have epicanthic folds in their eyes, or they have a dot in the middle of their head, or they have whatever the case may be, or because they have pale skin, because they're white. Same thing, racist against white people. It's the stupidest thing. It's like Ayn Rand hit the like she was like batting, I don't know, 900 or 1,000. I don't know what her batting average was for her essays, but it was like she just hit the nail on the head again. A barnyard form of collectivism. It's like you're using people as sheep and cows and pigs and chickens. It's like you're herding them into a specific way of life because of what? And you think about when it's at home. This is the beautiful thing about America. You have to, like I said before, they fought for their own personal freedom from Revolutionary War, Civil War, all the different wars that in between. There's too many to name. There's the Indian War and there's the Mexican War, Spanish War. There's all these different wars. But World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, the first Gulf War, Iraq War, the second Gulf War, or the Iraq War, Afghanistan, and our little excursions in Syria and Iraq again, and us supplying weapons and money to well, we shouldn't supply money, but weapons to Ukraine and Israel. It's the same thing, exactly. I mean, we have it's all about collectivism. It's all about collectivism. That's the sad part. That's the evil that we have to deal with. Collectivism. Yes, Wizard, you're right, my brother. Everybody, this is a black show tonight. This is about the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. I have to get it right. I have to make sure I get it right because it's a lot of B's in there. It's a lot of words going on. But the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion, they set the standard. They set the mark because for whatever reason, white officials, the white establishment, the senior leaders, the colonels and the generals, they thought that black people didn't have the capacity, mentally or physically, to be able to wage war, to be able to fight. Wizard says, "What's ninja?" Okay. Rick James says, "Sadly, I would not be surprised if there is a second D-Day type event. I doubt it because we have nuclear weapons." You're accepting someone who calls you brother today? Yes, today is a black show. It's all about the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. I have to stretch it out. Because I want to make sure I get it correct like every time. It's all at the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion and how they will not be forgotten on Skylar Saunders' show. They will not be forgotten on Skylar Saunders Sees. They will not be forgotten. Their efforts will not die in vain because they saved the world. They literally saved the world. Allied forces saved humanity, the earth. Could you imagine if it went the other way? There's a book and a TV series called The Man in the High Castle where it imagines if the Japanese and the Germans actually won the war and how ugly and disgusting that would be. So, just something to think about. Go pick that up. It's by Philip K. Dick. Pause. No Diddy. But that was his name. So, but yeah, it's an excellent TV series I saw. I think it comes on Prime Video. Came out like in 2014 or 15, I think. Something like that, or maybe a little later. But it's an excellent show. Definitely highly recommend it. Only black people in the room today. Greg ass keep out. Well, Greg ass can come along and say, I'm a Dominican. But this is my question also. How far do tethers, like, how far do they go? Does it extend beyond Africa and the islands? Can they be from like London or England? Because Idris Elba is doing a documentary talking about forgotten heroes, about the black people like the 320th barrier balloon battalion. But he's doing a special on that very thing. And is he a tether? Is he considered a tether? Because he's not a foundational Black American. Definitely not that. He's not an American descendant of slaves. He's not FBA or ADOS, which could be construed as collectivist ideals. I know that. But for the most part, I think they're for individualism. Because you have to be an individual person. Just don't make it mystical either. Don't make it like, oh, well, they weren't born here. I mean, some things you have to say you have to be born here. Like if you want to be president, you have to be born here. As long as that stands, that's the way it is. It's just part of reality, part of the truth. But that could be, I guess that could be changed too. I don't know. Maybe that could be amended again. I don't know. You can be born in America. You can be, 27 years old when you can be president. I don't know what the actual issue would be, but yeah, so very serious. The 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. That's as fast as I'm going to say it. But seriously though, they really are the reason why we can breathe in and breathe out freedom on this land. The reason why we haven't had an all-out invasion, of a whole lot of a high magnitude, with tens of thousands of people dead, from some kind of invasion of troops and personnel, is because of these men. It's because of them. And it is only right that we acknowledge and that we uphold them in our thoughts and our memories. Because where else are they going to go? They could be dead. They're dead. They're not. That's it. They're done. But what we can do is remember them. Remember them for what they did. For what they saw. For what happened to them. For their bravery. You ever heard that before? I'm sure that's like a cliche now. Land of the free because of the brave. It's ingrained in us. It should be ingrained in us. It's cliche, but it's true. People want to argue and say, "Oh, do we need a military? Do we need a Department of Defense?" Even Barack Hussein Obama, former president, once said, something along the lines of, "With the Sermon on the Mount, do we really need a Department of Defense?" Like, what? Like. I can't remember exactly when he said that, but he said that sometime early on in his presidency. But he said that in a speech. He was saying how love others and love your neighbor and stuff like that. Love your enemy and stuff like that. It's like the disgusting nature of that, the disturbing nature of that is just overwhelming. And he who never picked up a rifle or stood guard, stood a post. He didn't have to, but I'm saying, if he's talking about getting rid of the Department of Defense, or making the inkling, or making the inclination, making the insinuation that the Department of Defense should be phased out. That's just horrendous. That's beyond disgusting. That's horrendous and ugly and evil. And you have to recognize the Department of Defense as only an institution that responds, retaliates to force, not initiates it. That's the only proper role of the Department of Defense, the military. Why it takes in hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And why that's proper. Now, I only can, salute, generals and on down to second lieutenant. But they really are the ones, especially the colonels and the generals, not even the lieutenants and the captains and the majors, but the colonels and the generals, they're the ones responsible. They're the ones that started the segregation. I mean, if they didn't start it, they further instigated it. They further thought, that it was worth doing. Okay, Garuda, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but that's okay too. I have 0 viewers. 0 viewers right now. But I think there's like 1 or 2 of y'all in here, but it just doesn't show. See, there's one already it pops up. But yeah, so it's a very weird space to be in when you have generals and that make up these decisions to put young people, young boys and girls. Now it's young women and men in harm's way. And I guess non-binary. I don't even know. Do you? I honestly don't know. I would love to know. But yeah. So you're putting these young people into harm's way for what? For political points? Because you're thinking about running for office one day? What is that? I don't understand. So it just harkens back to the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion and what they stood for, what they meant, what their whole idea was. And they served competently. They knew how to use the cables. They knew how to put the bombs onto the balloons that would do damage to the German aircraft. Okay, I'm not even going to repeat that, Rick James, because that could be something, to take away from the issue of the day. So I'm not going to repeat that. But keep posting, and post on. But I just think that the fact that there were segregated units, that just blows my mind. How evil and vicious and collectivistic and individualistic and non-rational and irrational that was. That whole period. That whole entire era. I mean, I don't even know if they called them segregated. I know it was in the 20th century, but I'm thinking back to the 19th and the 18th centuries. They weren't necessarily segregated. I don't know if they said the word segregated, because I think black people just fought against, with white people. But I think there were, segregation, of course, in Civil War and World War I, World War II, and then, at the end of World War II, the first, war to have integrated units was Korea, I think. Let me make sure of that. You can put in your community fingers. No, Scott, you got it all wrong. You get it all wrong. So that is the gist of this. That is the main idea, is to represent for the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. Remember them. Remember not their sacrifice. That's the first thing that people will say. Remember their sacrifice. Remember their sacrifice. What is a sacrifice? A sacrifice is giving up a greater value for a lesser or a non-value. So you're saying that going to fight for freedom is a greater value, and that you're giving up your life for freedom, for a greater value. That's still not sacrifice. That sacrifice means that you are dying on behalf of your enemy and saying that I wanted him to have freedom. That's a sacrifice. That's a horrendous and ugly and disgusting sacrifice. So to be sacrificial means that you're altruistic, and if you're altruistic means that you're for others, and anyone who's for others is for nothing, really, because you can't be for yourself. Then you're for nothing. You're for the vapors. You're for grasping at nothingness. That's the reality. And that's not what the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion stood for. They did not stand for sacrifice. So that's what you'll hear, though. You'll hear that, I'm sure, at all the D-Day ceremonies, at the various grave sites and stuff like that. Their sacrifice, their sacrifice, their sacrifice, over and over and over. Because you'll get into your head and you'll start believing it, but you know it's not true. It's that thing where you're like, you're grasping at something in the air, but you're like, you're still not, you're feeling your way through, and you're not sure exactly if you're going towards the light. But the light is saying selfishness. They died for selfishness. They died for themselves. For the person to the left and the right of them. That they valued. There wasn't somebody that they didn't value. If they were somebody they didn't value, they've died for nothing. So it just is a mess. It's a mess, but we're cleaning it up. I think, like I said, Dr. Euron Brook, he usually has something positive to say. He has a little bit of positivity during his gloomy, not because of him, but just because of the state of the world. He has to course, he has to pivot and drive through all the disgusting and gloomy stories of the day. So that's just him. That's what Dr. Euron Brooks stands for, and that's why I stand with him on that, because the world is wonderful. The world is beautiful. And we're at a point because of World War II. This is what Ayn Rand said. Reason came into the world primarily because of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. That's how we got reason. Reason is, despite all the mysticism, despite all the people that go, the billions of people that follow, Christianity and Islam and Judaism and other, mystical ideas, still, reason reigns supreme. It may be in the shadows, but it's existent. It still exists. Now, individualism. She said individualism. This ties into the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. This stopped. What's it called? Collectivism. Collectivism stopped because of individualism taking hold after World War II. So she said, there's going to be collectivist, regimes, of course. There's going to be Stalin and Pol Pot and so many others. And they're going to, hundreds of millions of people are going to die. But that's not going to be the end of it. What happens in the end is always the main thing. When all that ends well, all that ends well goes well. I can't say it right. I can't say it. But you know what I mean. It's in the end, that's the best thing that happens. I'm like George Bush up here. You can't get fooled again. Who remembers George Bush? Anybody on here? I'm the old man on the porch yelling at the kids on my lawn. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. Talking about George W. Bush. Oh my God. What a horrific president was he. All is well that ends well. That's as simple as it takes. This took me in time. All is well that ends well. Okay. So you get enlightenment, reason, and it defeats, mainly defeats mysticism. Individualism defeats collectivism at the end of World War II, pretty much across the world. Even though, like I said, there's going to be Stalin and Pol Pot and others, they will not reign forever. They will be defeated. And they died, and after that, a lot of the different places around the world found freedom, found little bits of, mixing and matching with, experimenting with bits of freedom. But at the end, the sad part, altruism. Altruism never really had a hold on America or in the world. It was just like a blood disease. It's like leukemia. It's like stuck in the blood system. You have to, eradicate it, in order for it to come out. So that was her take on mysticism and collectivism and altruism. But altruism there's an antidote for altruism, and that's capitalism, which is not just making money. Oh, I'm getting money. I'm a capitalist. No, it means for a proper government to protect individual rights, including and especially property rights. That's capitalism. That's the main idea behind that. So I'm very, I just want to dedicate this whole episode to the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. Let them be known. Let that be known. Let that be cast into the world. I don't know if I'm going to get six viewers or 6 billion viewers, but I'm just putting this out there because I think it's important. I think it's righteous. I think it's correct. Because I don't know about anybody else that's going to talk about them. I don't know if I'm going to go on YouTube and see, oh yeah, they're talking about the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. I don't think I'm going to see that too much. And these great men, these men who did not sacrifice, who were selfish, but may not have said that. That's the thing. They may not have said, yeah, I'm selfish. That's why I'm here. That probably wouldn't have been the case. Let's be honest. That probably wouldn't be the case. Even though that was the reality and the fact. They would say, oh, I'm here, because I want to defend this nation. And that's the thing that gets me when people say, oh, I'm not fighting that white man's war. I'm not fighting that white. Well, what war are you fighting? Why are you even here? You're fighting a war for yourself, not for the white man. White man may care about you, may not give a damn about you. You should be worried about yourself. That's what I was put into my mind. I wasn't fighting for the white man. I was fighting for my own benefits, my own salary. That's what I was fighting for. I knew I was going to get paid. Now, I didn't know how it was going to be, but I am paying benefits, right? Because I earned them and I deserved them. And I was very selfish about that. I was very vocal about it. But you have to be careful. You have to be in hushed tones. You have to, just know when to say it, know when not to say it. Step on the gas and know when to brake. So you just have to be careful at all times. But yeah, they would say I'm fighting for my girl. I'm fighting for my brothers. I'm fighting for my sisters. I'm fighting for my grandma. I'm fighting for my state. I'm fighting for my It's not like I'm fighting for those who are poor and indigent, and I don't think that people would say that at first. I don't think that would be the issue. Okay, we got Robert in the house. He's saying, right, they don't need to say they're selfish, so long as they believe they're fighting for their lives, their families, their country, their values. And I believe they did. Absolutely. Absolutely right. Absolutely right, Robert. Because that's the truth. That's why it's like a tacit thing. It's quiet. Like each and every war, from the Revolutionary War up to now, black people have been involved. And they didn't say, I'm helping out the white man. And I don't think they said that. And I don't think they said, I have to do this because it's on the side of the white man, and or I'm fighting against the white man because he did me wrong. I don't think that was the case. I never heard that, and I don't think that was ever true. If that were true, it was the smallest minority. They were fighting for their own values, their own value system, and that was probably because they had in their mind, they didn't know how wonderful America would be, and the world would be in 1777 or 1779 or 1861, 1862 or 1919 or well 1917, 1918. We didn't start till later on. But 1942 to 45, 1968, 91, 2003, 2001, 2003. I'm just naming off dates, but I can't think of any time in history where a black person, an African American, a foundational black American stood up and said, I'm fighting against the white man for my freedom. Like, nobody says that. Or I'm fighting for the white man for my freedom. No, they just said, I'm fighting for my freedom. And they had no conception of how the military would change its mind on segregation. They had no idea of how free they would actually be to express themselves in music and culture and different things like that. They had no conception of that to what we are today in the 21st century. And that's what makes it beautiful. That's why we had the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion that stood up on D-Day and helped those white men. They were white. They happened to be white. There weren't a lot. One of the only men who were in airplanes that were men of color were the Tuskegee Airmen, and they had red tails. And these were not red tails. These were white German enemy aircraft that they used their balloons for to kill, to take down as many aircraft as they did to save the white men on the beaches. So that was the thing. It wasn't like, oh, I have to save these white men. Oh, it's my job and my duty and my sacred honor to do it. They're like, these are fellow Americans. I think in their mind. I don't know, but they're saying like they were fellow Americans. They're men that were serving in the same uniform. That's what's so great. That's what's so wonderful about the military. Everybody wears the same uniform. And the enemy doesn't give a goddamn whether you're a Navy, Marine, Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, or Space Force. They don't care. Did I get them all? Hope I got them all. But they don't care. They just want to see as many Americans dead as possible, and Americans' allies dead. That's all they care about. So, for anybody to say, I'm fighting for, or people that at home that say, nah, that's a white man's war. I ain't fighting for no white man. That is complete bullshit. That is like the worst thing you can possibly say. Because you're not fighting for white man, black man, red man, yellow man, brown man. You're fighting for you. But you don't even have to say that. And like I said, like what Robert said, they didn't say, oh, I'm fighting for my selfishness. They didn't say that. They didn't have to say that. They said, I'm fighting for my loved ones back at home. I'm fighting for, to make sure that the country is better than it is today. And that's what happened. They didn't know there was going to be a civil rights movement, which should have been called the individual rights movement. They didn't see that. Maybe they saw it, but they said, I'm fighting for something right. I don't know exactly how. I don't know exactly when everything's going to happen, but like Sam Cooke, a change is going to come. So when you have the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion, when you have that in place, when you have men that are dedicated not to sacrifice, not to altruism, not to selflessness or unselfishness, but don't have to go around saying, yeah, I'm selfish. Yeah, I'm doing this for me. Me. That's not selfishness. That's self-centeredness. That's self-absorption. That's not selfishness. So that's what I think is so crucial and so important to remember about the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion and the men that served there. Because like I said, I just woke up in the morning. I was like, how many black people served in on Omaha Beach? I think I put Omaha Beach, and then they corrected and said like on Normandy, and the beaches of Normandy are on D-Day, and that came back as it said 1,200, then it said 2,000. And I was like, wow, Where is that in history? I don't remember that at all. I didn't see that in Saving Private Ryan or anything. I don't remember that. When did that happen? That just blew my mind. And then I found out, read about this sole unit of African Americans. Sole unit, the only unit, the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion is the only one, the only completely black unit of the United States of America to fight in Normandy and fight on the beaches on D-Day, 80 years ago today, if you can believe that. And the last person to die was in 2021 in July. So these stories have to be told. These pictures have to be circulated. These brave men, these courageous men who did not die in vain, who did not die for no reason, who did not die for the sake of their enemy. If you can believe that, that's what the Bible literally says. Love your enemy. Really? Did I love my enemy? Did they really love their enemy so much that they put bombs on cables and sent balloons up in the air for the aircraft that their enemies struck, and the aircraft were destroyed and they were killed? That's loving your enemy? I don't know what. There needs to be a definition page in the Bible again. Because I remember that I used to have a Bible before when I was a believer. I used to have a Bible that had, the definitions in the back of mainly of all the different descriptions in the Bible. And I think we need to bring that back. I would love to see what the definition of love is to Christians, especially. I know Jews and Muslims have similar ideals, but not the same as Christian. I know Christian. Luke 6:27 and Matthew 5:44 say, love your enemy, do good to those who hurt you, who curse you. Literally says that. So we have to be very careful in our way of displaying, who we are and what we are, because that is insanity. That is literally what Dr. Jerome Brooks says about our culture. We live in an insane culture. We do. We live in an insane culture. We have one thing going for us, and then the next, we're not. It's like, that's not right. That's insanity. That's wrong. Robert says this: to love the enemy is to betray the good. To love your enemy is to betray your allies. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Ayn Rand had something to say about that as well. She said something about I think something like prisoners or people, or it was compassion. Compassion for the oppressor is like betrayal against the ones that they oppress. Something along those lines. I kind of chopped it up, I think, but you get my intention. That's exactly what is going on there. That's exactly the kind of sentiment that she was saying. If you have compassion for the oppressor, then that is complete betrayal for those that are oppressed. And that's true. That's what Robert's alluding to. That's what he's saying. If you love your enemy, then you're against your allies. You're against yourself. You're against all values. You're against reality. You're nothing. That's disgusting. So, 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. Very important. Never to be forgotten. Always remember them. Someone should always. There's probably going to be a book, a novel. There's been a few nonfiction works regarding them, and I think a documentary. But I think there's going to be a feature film regarding them maybe one day. Maybe I'll write it. We'll see. Who knows? But we'll see about it. But I want to thank everybody that came through. Thank you, Rick James, especially. Thank you. Who else came in here? Wizard. He came in for a little while. And of course, Robert. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for stopping by. You don't have to, the room is not like we're used to on Dr. Young Brook. Well, then, Dr. Young Brook has his wahoos, his his people that are, little, little off, you know, and kind of wrong. But I appreciate you. Thank you very much for stepping in. And always remember the 320th Barrier Balloon Battalion. Always remember them. So I salute them, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.